Hi, I'm Beatrice Go and welcome to Rappler Talk. Today we'll be talking to sports lawyer Mickey Ingles about the legal issues that Philippine Football Club Global FC is facing. Okay, so Mickey, how are you naman? Like this, yun.
Good naman. Just we finished a five class course on sports law. That was pretty fun. And then keeping busy preparing for the start of the school year. So pretty busy pa rin.
Oh wow, the one for sports law, for which organization did you conduct your lessons for?
It was an open course, so anyone could enroll. So I just posted it on social media. Like 20 people joined, and they all went to the five classes. So that was fun. People enjoyed it. I enjoyed teaching it.
Yes, committed silang lahat. Grabe.
Yeah, ako sobrang happy na they were committed. Tapos they really participated in the classes really well. Lot of questions, lot of insights, lot of comments. I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah, hindi naman sobrang mind-blowing, no?
Hindi naman. Simple stuff lang. Simple but very important stuff to protect all stakeholders, protect the athletes especially.
Yeah, so mostly athletes yung pumunta sa class mo.
There were a number of athletes, a number of ex-athletes. There were siguro mga 3 or 4 lawyers, and then there were also some law students from UP who joined. Yeah, so that was good. I
Mm.
liked it. Good mix siya, good mix.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I heard na sobrang diverse din ng class mo.
Yeah,
Because usually it's just mostly for athletes or
yeah,
like a certain organization also.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it was good.
Yeah, so
I liked it.
yes. So for today, we'll be needing your expertise again. But then this time for like the issue naman in one of our professional football teams, Global FC. So a little bit of background. Like I've covered this story also since 2018. It was the first time they actually announced that they haven't been paying the salaries of their athletes maybe over months then and then this time it's happening again during
Yeah.
the pandemic. So like we have some athletes who came, athletes and even staff who came up with accusations against them. So I guess what will be the first step lang, like starting with the club, what can they do like against these accusations?
Well, if you're Global FC, if you want to address these accusations, I guess you have to address them head on. You have to be truthful. You have to talk to the athletes, talk to the staff, and try to work something out, right? Because if they have been paying, then there shouldn't be a problem. But if these athletes and the staff members have been talking, there must be a problem that must be addressed. And hopefully, Global, the team, really is honest and fully discloses what happened and pays these athletes if ever there were payments due to them, right? So that's a, I mean, just settle things amicably. If it's possible to pay them, then pay them.
Mm-mm. And then like if it can't be done naman internally, so what can these staff, unpaid staff and athletes go through? Like what processes can they go through?
So I'm not that familiar with the contract, right? Because sometimes the contract might say that you cannot go to court, that you have to follow the internal procedures. If that's the case, then the athletes and even the staff or whoever hasn't been paid must first write global, right? Try to figure it out on that level. If not, then you raise it to the league, PFL, and then you raise it also to the PFF, right? Because sometimes when we do these dispute resolution mechanisms, it usually has to go through the internal mechanisms first, like the PFF, right? The contracts that we studied before, at least in terms of football, would give that route first with the team and then PFL and PFF. If it still can't be resolved, then you go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, right? But sometimes the PFF doesn't even act on it. And in those instances, then it can be argued that the internal mechanism isn't working. And then you may be able to argue it in front of court. You go to the Department of Labor and Employment, because it's going to be a labor issue, and then you battle it out there. But of course, you want to try to finish everything first internally. And if internally, or even the mechanisms that PFF has put in place, if they don't work or nothing has been resolved, or even the athletes aren't being heard of, then you can go a different route.
I see. So when you say different route, it's not through court, na?
No, a different route meaning you go to court, because the default
Mm.
rule is you try to fix things internally first and within the PFF. If nothing's happening there, what's going to happen to the athlete or to the unpaid worker, right? It's going to be unfair if they're going to be stuck with that. Then you have to give them a different avenue to remedy the situation, and that will be the court or the Department of Labor and Employment in this case.
Mm. Okay. So, what can like in terms of like the like a bit of the nitty-gritty. So according PFF, PFL, AFC, and FIFA, these governing bodies, they actually have handbooks for the club license of global. So what can they because of this situation, what can happen to the club?
Okay, so what is licensing? Licensing basically means that the governing body, like the PFF or AFC, FIFA, allows the team to join, right? And to allow the team to join, the team will have to prove a number of things: that it is financially capable, that it takes care of the sporting responsibilities of the team, that its legal documents are all in order. So these are called like licensing criteria, right? One of the licensing criteria talks about the finances of a certain club. And it's called the A criteria, because if it's given an A criteria, that means if a club is not able to meet that A criteria, it should not be given a license in the first place. Or if it was given a license, then that license can be revoked. That's all there in the PFF licensing rules. If you look at the PFF licensing rules, under the financial criteria, it says there that if there are payables overdue towards employees, and it actually says there that the employees shall include professional players of the team, the criteria. And if this criteria is not met, then the license can be revoked. So if it's true that the allegations going around that Global has not paid these players, whether he in this weird year of 2020 or even last year, 2019 or 2018, then the first instance board, or meaning the licensing committee of the PFF, can revoke the license of Global to play in the PFL. And if you revoke that, automatically revoke also yung license to play in the AFC. So that's what Global is looking at right now.
I see. And then what will happen to the players naman of global if once the license has been revoked?
Well, that's the problem that Global will have to figure out, because underlying a club is it's a corporation, right? And the corporation still exists without the license to play in the PFF, right? So it still exists. And if these players, and rightfully so, they should be considered employees of this corporation, they should still be there in the corporation, even if the corporation is not playing. So, what are the options of Global in that case? Then you do the normal routine of how a corporation would lay off employees. Like, will they be retrenched? Will they be taken out because of to prevent business losses? Or will the corporation, what do they call it? Die down? Like, will they cease to exist? In all instances, then you have to follow labor laws, because they are rightfully considered employees. And even in the PFF licensing rules, it says that the employees here are the professional players. So that's what's going to happen to players. I'm not sure if it will happen, because I mean, from what we've heard, they have allegedly not being paid. So I'm not sure if they will still get paid, or at least Global will pay them if Global loses its license, right? Kasi nung may license nga, hindi binabayaran. Paano pa kaya pag wala na? Right? So we'll see what happens.
Mhm. And then, is there any clause regarding termination of players? And like how, yun nga, parang if nawala yung license, and then they'll eventually have to retrench and lay off employees. So, are there clauses for termination in the handbooks?
In the licensing handbooks, there are none, but I think in the PFF regulations, or at least the FIFA regulations on the transfer and status of players, there is, right? But I can't say it off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are instances there where the player will still be protected if the club goes down. Because if there are
Mm,
none, then you go back to the whole regime of the labor code.
yes. Buti na lang football has like the what you call this, of solid world governing body, the FIFA. I think
Yeah, yeah.
there are rules for that talaga eh. Because I like in other sports, it becomes more difficult if it's not professionalized yung
Yeah, that's
sport.
true. That's true. Well, the thing is here, even if it's governed by FIFA, which is really well established, right? The way the things are being run here by the teams, at least from what we've heard through social media over the years, it doesn't seem like it's as professional as it should be, given that there are a lot of these murmurings that players are not being paid, right? So even if FIFA's there, the groundwork should be here in the Philippines and should be, I mean, the club should be run by people who really think that they know. I mean, it should be run well, right? It doesn't seem like these clubs have been being run well, right? I mean, a lot of clubs have folded over the years, and the players are the ones who get the bad end of it because they lose their jobs, right? They lose their chance for a wage.
And then like in terms of not only in football but even other professional teams like the PBA and or even abroad NFL, NHL, are there instances where unpaid salaries are brought to the court of arbitration for sport? Is it common there?
PBA, no, because I'm not sure. Because to get to the court of arbitration for sport, you have to have in your contracts a clause that will refer the issue to the contract of arbitration for sport. I don't think there's such a clause in the PBA contract. For NBA, most of the American leagues won't have it because they have their own arbitration agencies to rule it. But when it comes to European leagues like European football, European basketball, there will be clauses there, right? But first, mangyayari dyan is, kunyari, hindi binayar, you're playing for a European football team. If you're not paid, again, you go through the process of your team. If not, you go through your home governing body, right? For example, if it's in Spain, then the Spanish Football Federation will rule against it. If there's none pa rin, then you can go to the Court of Arbitration for sport.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I remember I attended one of your sports law classes with sila Gia,
Okay.
Eliza, and
Yeah.
Teacher, and they did talk
Yeah.
about how as Filipino athletes, Filipino professional athletes, on how they could negotiate and even protect themselves as players in terms of signing contracts. So, yun,
Yeah.
like what as a sports lawyer, what are your tips naman for like athletes who plan on signing into professional teams or transferring and everything?
Well, the first tip is get a lawyer to review the contract because we've dealt with a lot of athletes who immediately sign the contract kasi they immediately they look at the money involved, right? But the money is a big part of it, but it's not the only part of it because concomitant to that monetary reward that you're getting are a whole host of obligations, right? And sometimes an athlete won't know his or her obligations, and then it will hurt him or her in the future because parang na-breach pala yung obligation, di niya alam. And other than that, there are a lot of issues also that you can see in contracts. For example, like automatic renewal by the team without the consent of the athlete, right? So kung ganyan, you're stuck with the team forever, right? And you're not protected. And some athletes they don't even know that that can happen, right? So for them, magtatapos na yung 5-year contract ko with Team X, kukuha na ako ng offers from Team Y. And then they find out when it expires, they were automatically renewed with the team. And then kung umangal sila, sasabihin ng team, look, you originally agreed to an automatic renewal clause. Sorry, that's the contract, you're bound by it, right? So it's very important for athletes to consult a lawyer before looking at the contract. Second, you would want to, money is not the only consideration when you join a team. As much as possible, you want at least the culture and the values of the team to be enmeshed with yours. I mean, to be synced with yours, right? Because that's going to be our identity for the next couple of years. So when we tell our athletes, either when they join a team or looking for a team or looking for endorsements, try to sync your values with the value of the brand or the team you're trying to join. It's not always about the money.
Mm-mm. And Mickey, you were also a professional athlete before for Meralco, right?
I was with the team that got absorbed by Meralco. I left before they professionalized.
Oh, so it's semi-pro, ba? Semi-pro
Yeah,
ba tawag doon?
parang I was with the Loyola Football Club and we were playing in the UFL. And I was with the team until the time that Meralco and Loyola came into a partnership, right? Once our big sponsor came in, that was the time I was reviewing in fourth year law school. And things got too serious. I couldn't balance it. And I also found out that the team signed the two young husbands. Kaposition ko si James, young husband. So obviously hindi ako makakalaro. So I decided parang, okay, I'll concentrate with law.
Tapos naging sports law. So,
Yeah,
tuloy,
yeah,
parang tuloy-tuloy lang.
yeah.
Grabe, that journey, like just from being, um, you were a three-time champion in Ateneo, right?
Yes,
Like
times,
three-time
yes.
UAP football champion, then Loyola while doing law school, and then sports law
Yeah.
na kaagad.
Yeah. I mean, the journey's not over, and it's been a fun journey so far.
Yes. Okay. Well, yun lang naman, Mickey. Like, did I miss anything pa kaya? Would you like to add on some points that we've discussed
Uh,
before?
maybe people should pay more attention, at least with football, to the financial fair play regulations, right? Because financial fair play for FIFA basically says that if you're a team, you have to be an ongoing concern as a business. Hindi pwedeng maraming utang, right? Why? Because syempre, you want the team to be viable in order to play the athletes and to make sure that the team doesn't fold up, right? So I think if you are interested in buying a team in the Philippines, or if you're interested in starting your own team and getting your own license with the PFF, make sure that you are financially stable, or at least your financial projections are are solid. Because like now with COVID, a lot of teams are folding up, right? You want to be robust and anti-fragile in order to live this out, and of course, just to comply with FIFA fair play, financial fair play regulations. Because in the end, you want to protect the athletes.
Mm. Oh yes, and this is quite related to the news also of Sarah's looking for a new investor also. So is that also possible for global na there'll be a new investor comes in and settles the issue also or helps settles the
Well,
issue?
yeah. Well, that's entirely possible, but the new investor has to know that if the investor is buying into the company, he's also buying not only the assets or the brand and the intellectual property that goes with global, it's also buying the liabilities, right? Because the liabilities stay with the corporation. So that's something that you have to consider. So if you're buying the company, you're buying the team, you have to, I don't know, you have to settle all these non-payment of wages or alleged non-payment of wages because it's gonna stick to the company. Like a normal company, right? Parang some liabilities have been there since the early 2000s, even if nagpalit-palit na yung mga shareholders, yung owners, the company still has to pay for it.
Mhm. Yun. Like, let's hope for the best na lang for this issue for global and also for the players and the employees who are affected.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Mickey, for joining me in
Thank
this
you.
interview.